Welcome to the very first episode of the Self First podcast. I'm your host, Amber Anderson, but you can just call me Coach A. Today's conversation is one that might surprise you. I'll be sitting down with my ex-spouse, and in our relationship, we had some highs, some lows, and everything in between. Today, we're going to be honest about what that really looks like. Hey, Jaleesa.
Hey, Amber.
How are you?
I'm wonderful.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. I'm so glad to have you with me today. It's an honor to have you as my very first guest. Why are you laughing?
It's supposed to be fun. I want to look at you.
But seriously, you know my vision for a podcast for maybe a decade now. And it's taken me a while to get the courage up. Not even the courage. It wasn't really the courage in the past. It was more so just allowing myself the time to do this. But I'm going to do it. And I'm not willing to start this podcast journey without being open and transparent about one of the biggest moments of my life. So I'm going to get into the first question. And that is, would you like to tell the world, where we are now? Like, as far as our status?
A status, well, I do not like labels. So a status, I think we're rebuilding our friendship. I definitely think that's the main status right now. Still on a healing journey individually and collectively. And yeah, definitely getting back to the basics of rebuilding that friendship.
So to be completely transparent, we were showing ourselves to the world as married for 5 years, close to 5 years, and together for at least, 8?
Yeah.
People saw us together. So I guess the real question for the world, honestly, is, are we married or not? Why are you just looking at me laughing?
I'm just looking at you.
I think, you want me to answer?
Yeah.
Okay. I think the world knows, whether you heard it from somebody else or you just assume, we are no longer married. We haven't been married for, I guess, legally about a year now, but have been separated for 2. So that is something that we haven't publicly said. And that is one thing that we want to get out the way. Because I was talking to a friend this week, kind of telling them what direction I'm going with my first episode and who I would have on there and kind of what we would talk about. And that friend flat out was like, but why? Like, give all that to the world. And you might be thinking that right now too, like, Self First podcast. This is about to be about growth and life and discovery. Why it sound like a gossip session right here in the beginning? But that's the point in telling the truth of where we are right now, is so we can talk about the in-between, the self-discovery in the meantime and in the separation, but also maybe even be honest about the loss of self in the marriage. What you think? You think that's a good topic?
I definitely think so. We all know how people say, when you become married, you become one. And I think it's very important to still navigate as an individual within a marriage as well, so that you still have to remain true to yourself. And I do think that a lot of the times we lose ourselves in being everything for somebody else.
So, you kind of open a door. You want to kind of talk about, you just going to giggle all through this podcast?
Absolutely.
Is that your defense mechanism?
You just keeping it light.
Okay, I like light.
Yeah.
I struggle with light. I'm pretty serious, but I appreciate you balancing that out.
For sure.
So you just spoke about how we can sometimes lose ourselves in marriage. Would you mind sharing a couple of ways or a way or two that you feel like you lost yourself within our marriage?
For sure. One, I feel like I've been lost for a very long time.
That sounds like a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. But, as I'm sitting here thinking, I was a mom very young. So I feel like I've always lived a life of serving others, putting others first, taking care of others, and never really catering to my needs or being very willing to put my needs on the back burner, at the expense of what someone else needs. So I feel like in our marriage, I definitely lost, I would say, track of my goals. I know I've always wanted to be a nurse, take my healthcare education further. And that's something that I kind of put on the back burner because I'm a mom, I'm a wife. I was with someone with you at the time that had an established business, and I just wanted to see you have that thrive. The boys were, getting more involved in things. So in my mind, Jaleesa will come later. And then I think all of that just played into my self esteem as well. I definitely feel like I lost that in our marriage, whether I really don't know what it could typically contribute to, but I would definitely say that those things, putting my dreams on the back burner and losing that little spark and like, you a baddie out here. You are like
Come back. Come back.
you're not
Jack, come
that. Oh
back. You tell me what I can't say on my podcast. No. Go ahead. You was talking.
No, that was pretty. I mean, I think that's pretty much it. Definitely losing myself, losing track of my goals, and doing that at the expense of, you know, maintaining the family, putting other people's dreams ahead of mine.
Okay. So in the separation and the time apart in your singleness, have you been able to find yourself, redefine yourself in that time?
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think the moment that the world caught a whiff of a possibility of being single, I felt like I was back in 2015 again.
Oh, so you was outside.
2000, before August of 2016.
You was outside?
I wouldn't really say I was outside. I would definitely say that God allowed me to be reminded through people that I'm all right out here. And again, when we lose that individual sense of self and hyping ourselves up, and we lose that sometimes in a marriage, and not to say that your spouse doesn't tell you that you're beautiful or anything like that, but you just lose that spark. I feel like people might take this moment like I'm a Aisha Curry.
I'm literally like, hold on, you're having your Aisha
I feel
moment
like
right now.
it's not an Aisha moment. You
That's
never,
what it sounds like.
yeah, you never
You done got, I
need
got
it.
a little loud. My bad.
You
Let me bring
never-
my voice down a little bit. You just got a little defensive. I'm sorry.
You don't need it from other people while you're in a marriage. However, the moment that you do lose, what feels like a loss of 7 years with someone, and you're out here trying to re-figure out singleness, it definitely feels good to know that I'm still who I think I am. Even if I don't see it, then other people see it, and they can help me remind myself that I am that. So yeah, I found myself.
When I decided to bring you on as a guest on my podcast, I didn't think you was gonna be over here slapping me in the face and stuff. Let me humble myself right here in front of the camera. I'm glad you found what you needed in that moment.
I don't think it's what I needed, but well, no, let me be honest. It was definitely needed to put me back on a trajectory and a path of not playing about myself as an individual. So yeah, it was definitely a reboost that was needed.
I think that's pretty deep. So if I was a listener listening right now, I would think that you are saying that sometimes in your marriage, when you start to focus on family and spouse, you might start playing with yourself like you really ain't that deal.
Right. I think you tone, like we've had these conversations before in terms of who you are before you become married. So I don't want to say promiscuous or dressing a certain way, but you have a certain style. And society oftentimes tells us that a married woman should not present a certain way. So out of respect for your marriage or your partner, you may tone things down a little bit, and in conversations we've had, you like, nah, like put that on. You out here with me.
Put that stuff on. And if my kids want to watch it, I might say that a different way.
Oh my goodness. But as a spouse, I'm like, I don't want to present to the world as an available woman. So in that, sometimes dressing a certain way and wanting to maintain respect in a marriage, I feel like if that is a part of your identity, a part of your expression, as it was for me, then you can lose a part of you, a part of feeling like, that girl in that way. So back when I don't have to consider anyone, I'm single now, it's just me, it's my body. It was definitely still my body as I was in a marriage, but when it's just me and I only have to focus on considering myself, I don't have to worry about considering another person or how I'm presenting and what that portrays in our relationship, then I can get that what I feel like is sex appeal back.
So for me, hearing these things as the person that was doing marriage with you, it makes me feel like, did I put that on you? Because I don't think I put those things on you. So would you say that sometimes we as individuals put those things on us and not necessarily our marriage?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I think a lot of it has to do with societal pressures, societal views, and what, society or what the rule book says for the most part, how you are supposed to show up as a spouse. And whether that is in terms of, not being able to dress the way that you once dressed or in anything, being able to speak the way you once spoke and do the things you once did. All life tells us and society tells us that all of those things are supposed to change in order for you to be a good spouse.
Yeah.
And I'll put quotes around that. And that's not true. And I think honestly, being young for one and doing something as serious as getting married and not having a lot of guidance in that area can definitely, just have you out here figuring it out. And it might not always be the correct way, or you learn that there is no correct way. It's your marriage and you navigate it the way you want to.
So I'm glad you brought that up because one of my questions was going to kind of be when it comes to what we learn, what marriage is supposed to look like, what family is supposed to look like, and we create our dreams and our desires based off of what we feel like it's supposed to look like. Would you say that marriage showed you that all that stuff can be a little fluffy at times, a little
Absolutely.
unrealistic when it comes to the really looking at self first and the things that you've learned through the marriage, through the separation, and the things all in between? What have you learned about your desires and dreams versus the reality?
My desires and dreams in a marriage or oh, wow. I definitely think that having a desire for it to always be good
Mm.
is not a reality. If we're being honest, I think that, as I mentioned earlier, it's two individual people coexisting together. And I think that we have to be honest in knowing that showing up each day is a choice and loving someone is a choice. A lot of people think that love is a feeling, but it's actually an action. Like choosing to love and show up each day is a choice, and understanding that when things are not good or will not always be good, that is normal. That doesn't mean that it's technically a red flag. That doesn't mean that you get to throw in the flag. It
That's
doesn't
good.
mean that, oh gosh, we're having this hump, so maybe we're truly not meant for each other. It just means that life is always going to be life, and you have to be sure that you understand navigating life with another person.
Life is always going to be life.
Always.
As we've heard you talk about what you have discovered about yourself through the separation and how you lost yourself within the marriage, let's talk about some of the good. What worked out for you or for us in the marriage? What was good? And what did you learn about yourself?
I'll start by saying I definitely think our marriage was genuine for sure. I don't think any parts of it was fake or fabricated or loveless. I definitely think it was filled with genuine love, genuine intentions from the beginning. And um, I think we did a lot of beautiful things together. Like we definitely hit it off from the beginning with support and showing up for each other in spaces of business and spaces as individuals. We had moments where emotionally we carried each other, financially we carried each other, physically, like literally carried each other. So definitely a lot of genuine love was good in our marriage. We bought houses, we sold houses, we built a home with love, we raised some kids. So we did a lot of good. There was a lot of good in the marriage. Yeah.
The best parts of my life has been with you.
Goodness, girl, you cannot.
I can too. That is my truth. If I'm gonna do this podcast, then I'm gonna be honest, and that's not honest truth.
I
So
appreciate that.
I appreciate you for those moments and the continual moments that we have made, continuing to still have family together.
For sure.
You know, I'm asking you all these
I know.
questions.
I really was going
You,
to say, well,
you,
what about you? Like,
I feel like this is my podcast. I'm the interviewer. You are my guest.
yeah,
People are here for you.
they're here for your podcast. They want to hear your vulnerability as well in these moments. So,
Well, I got one more question, or
okay.
I've got plenty more questions.
Okay.
But you can ask me a few in a moment if you like.
Okay, for sure.
So we've been divorced for a year, been separated for 2. How has or how did the divorce impact you individually?
Um, okay, this is gonna be a part where I try not to cry. Okay. I definitely the divorce broke me, like in ways that I did not think I could break as a person. A lot of people don't know me, but I think the people that do know me in truth and to my core would consider me, a strong person, super strong, probably feel like I'm indestructible, nothing moves me and bothers me. And I think that's the furthest from the truth. Like I am truly a softie. I'm a very empathetic person. And so going through that experience and feeling what I felt like was my emotions, your emotions, the kids' emotions, the people around us emotions, and probably overthinking to an extent on what it looked like and what it would be like. Um, I don't know that I'm ready to get too deep on in the way that it broke me, but I was very rough for a long time. But I will say in that it birthed the person that I needed to be to get into the season that I was going into. We've talked briefly about it. I tell everybody now, like, do not pray that removal prayer until you are ready for whatever God has in store and whatever that may be, or be very specific in it. So before everything happened with us, I prayed that prayer and I knew I was ready to go back to school. I knew I was ready to just be a better person, have more to do with my life. And I prayed that prayer and then my world came crashing down. And, I never expected for what was taken from me to be the thing, but I honestly say I felt like I needed it again to get back to my truth and who I was and to propel me into the season that I was going in.
So, I mean, a married couple watching, someone married watching, and that message they might would get that, okay, the only way to find myself is through divorce. No, that's not the case, right?
No, not at all.
How do you feel like we could have gotten to that same result by not divorcing, by still remaining married?
Yeah. I think we could have recognized earlier that it wasn't Jaleesa and Amber against each other, that it should have been Jaleesa and Amber against the problem.
That's good.
And I feel like that would have allowed us to be honest in that moment on what we needed individually, while also making sure that it allowed us to move together as a collective. And that I feel like it would have been harder. I think it definitely would have been a lot harder, even though I can be honest in saying that doing it separately was very difficult.
Yeah.
I think doing it together would have still been very hard, but it could have been achieved.
Yeah, because I would say doing it together, I think we took steps in trying to do it together, but there was still for me a lot of fear in what happens when I put self first or consider myself or not compromise. What happens when I don't do those things? Do I lose my wife? Do I lose my children? Do I lose my family? So when you are thinking about the things, and we can get into this a little bit more if you desire, but when we think about the things that were roadblocks for us individually or together in our marriage, we saw them, we felt them, but we oftentimes push through them out of fear, out of compromise, out of family first, kids first, spouse first. So it is, I believe you're right. I think it is harder to maybe maneuver life in that self first space that you probably did in your singleness than when you're married, because while you want to be transparent and true and honest and communicate and all those things, sometimes you do sit back and you be like, is it worth it? Is it worth bringing this up and making this an issue? Is it worth the battle that might come with it? Is it worth hurting someone if that's what comes from that moment? Is it worth, is it even, it's not worth it. I know it was many times for me.
I think it is though.
I mean, I know it is
Oh,
now.
okay,
I know
good.
it is now, but I'm saying in the marriage, it just didn't feel worth taking myself, my spouse, my wife, my family through this storm if I can just suck it up. If I can just compromise. If I can just forget it, you
Right.
know? So it is. It's definitely hard to consider what's best for you when life tells us that, you got to do what's best for your mate, or not necessarily just for your mate, but you have to do what's best for your family.
Right, for sure. I think a lot of that ties into us living in our truth
Mhm.
and being okay with who we are or what we desire prior to being in community with another person. Because when we know that about ourselves and we can be honest about that in the beginning or on the in the forefront, even if it is still something that you're battling, you can be comfortable enough in yourself to say that, and then you allow space for, if this is something that I'm ready to let go of, is this something that I can maneuver in the beginning of this and then see if it is not truly who I am or what I want to be reflective of? So I think when people learn to be honest with themselves about who they are and what they want, then we can navigate the space of, is this the person I want to?
This is a question that I've never asked you before. What do you feel like you needed from me in our marriage that would have helped you find yourself?
Um, I don't think anything.
That's a great answer.
Yeah,
I mean, not for my sake, but that's like an aha moment right there.
Yeah, I don't think I needed anything from you to help me find myself. That is definitely a personal and individual journey. It's not one that anybody else was going to allow me to embark on until I was ready or until life forced me to. So I don't think there was anything that you could have done or said to make me realize. I feel like if anything, you did kind of encourage me to put myself first. And, there were moments that I did, um, and it felt good. And then, it would be 3 months or 6 months later before I did something again. So again, I don't think there's anything that you could have done to help me find myself. That was all a Jalisa thing.
So we're still talking about the divorce. What part was the hardest part?
I think the entire thing, or maybe the beginning. The beginning separation. Like, I did not want to believe that this was truly happening. I did not want to come to terms like that it was ending or heading towards an ending. Um, I think that was the hardest part. Like, there were moments, so many days I woke up thinking I was in a dream because I'm like, this is not happening. Like, we are not doing this. So I honestly think the beginning was the hardest part. True separation, moving out, things of that sort is difficult. Selling a home, that's hard. But by the time all of that happens, there's some sort of like realization that, okay, this is what's happening. So I definitely think the few days and weeks leading up to like the decision of, okay, we're not doing this anymore is probably definitely the hardest part.
It still kind of hits in layers, though, right? I used to tell, the people that knew what we were going through, a lot of time went by,
For sure.
between the separation and divorce. A lot of time went by, but it was like, get a slap over the face when I move out. Another slap when you might make an adjustment. Another slap when there's another shift, and then another slap when the house is going up for sale, and then offers being made, and then the close. Like it just kept. it just, the reality was the reality, but it was almost like someone kept pressing rewind and you just had to keep feeling it.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, that was rough to go through. Even in times where for me it felt like I was getting to places, moments of healing. I might feel a little more healed in this moment, and then boom, this happens. And then it reminds me that I'm not over this at all. So separation is not for the weak at all. And I think that's on purpose. I mean, with the making you separate for a year in itself, it's almost like because those things have to go on, it allows time for you to be like, okay, I really can't do this. Let's get this together.
Yeah, for sure. You know how I feel about the South Carolina law and the
You
one
want it to
year
be done.
separation. Yeah, definitely much so. I always say I'm a lover and a leaver, and I
Mm.
feel like when it's time for things to be left, like I want to leave. And so I do think that the 1 year separation allowed for I I would say for God to speak to both of us. I feel like God was trying to speak to both of us throughout that time. And it does make things more difficult, especially when you're trying to move in privacy and move with a sense of grace.
Thank you for your grace. Thank you for your grace.
I think
I
it's
didn't give myself much. You gave me a lot.
yeah, I think it's it makes it hard because on both sides of things, it's easy to want to be evil, want to crash out, as we say nowadays, want to blast someone on social media. And so to truly move with love and grace and have to do that for a period of 1 year, it can be hard because again, like you said, all of those things keep arising and you're out and someone's like, "Hey, how's Amber?" And you really want to say, "I don't know. I don't care. We're not together." But you're like, "Oh, she's doing good." And it's like because you're trying to navigate this space. One, you don't know. I mean, like you said, that 1 year separation, a lot of people mend, get back together, don't go through with things. So you don't want to put anything out there that's going on with you and your spouse or you in the separation and then 2 months later y'all decide, all right, we're whatever, we're back. So yeah, it is difficult for sure.
And the difficulties of the separation and how we kept having to relive moments. Do you feel like that made healing hard for you?
Absolutely, yeah. It definitely made it hard because again, I feel like most of the time, marriage ends in bad, or at least we think it ends in bad all the time. We think it ends in this big blow up, this fight, some domestic situation, or things of that sort. And you don't have to hear from that person. You don't have to see that person unless, of course, kids are involved and you have to figure out some type of court ordered navigation. But for the most part, I feel like we're getting divorced, you go your way, I go mine, see you at court. So to continue to try to, again, show up in love, show up in grace, I do feel like it made healing harder because at the end of the day, this is a person you chose to do life with, and that doesn't just go away because of a decision. And especially moments like now, when you can laugh with a person or you're in a space where a memory comes up, that definitely makes healing harder. So, I was not trying to talk to you for a very long time. I was keeping it short
I
because
remember.
I'm like, I'm really trying to close this chapter, heal this part of me. And I can't do that if I'm still having familiar moments with
Mhm.
you.
Yeah. And I think for me, I had moments of longing for those familiar moments.
Yeah.
Um, or dwelling there. And not so much because of just, wanting them back in that moment. It just felt good. Like we had great moments.
Yeah.
Great moments worth remembering, worth wanting to hold on to,
Hmm.
for sure. I would say healing for me might have looked a little different for you. I think I was kind of closed off to healing. I created a life where I didn't take time for healing. I had a lot of guilt, a lot of shame, so I was accepting my storyline that I was telling myself in my head. I'm not worth it. I just destroyed the best thing that happened in my life. I lost trust in the people that I care about. So for me, It was more so, "This is who I am. This is how you see me as," that's what I'm telling myself, "But you see me as a certain person, a certain way, so it is what it is." So, for me, I was sitting in what I felt like I had created. And I think because I sat in that, I didn't give myself space to sit in any type of feeling. So I think for me, you know, and I'm allowing you to do a lot of the talking because you took the time to work through the reality, to find yourself, to self discover, and to truly figure out how to put yourself first. I think I'm just getting to that point. However, I recognize the things from the marriage, the compromises that I feel like I've made in our marriage and our relationship. And I recognize how I might have lacked in the self first department for my dream. And my dream has always been a family. And we've talked about this. We've talked about this in therapy a lot. And that's one thing that we are kind of working through even right now is just the dream versus reality. And I think we both have recognized, at least for me, the dream of family, the desire of family and love. Those are things that I've lived for a long time. And I had it. And it was beautiful, but it didn't always resemble the dream to me. And then you get to be introduced to the reality. And then you got to realize, how are you going to work through this is my reality, and it doesn't match what I had envisioned for my life to look like within a family. So, what do you do with that?
I think that piggybacks on, again, being honest with yourself about what it is that you want and allowing your life to be that. I feel like often we are circles, out here trying to fit in square spaces, or we find a square and we're trying to mold it into a circle. And that might not be the area that we need to be in. So, knowing your dream and allowing your reality to fit your dream, if I'm saying that right. It's coming out of my head a certain way. I don't know if it's coming out of my mouth the same way. But yeah, just being honest about what you want and then allowing yourself to have that,
Mhm.
mold your life to be that, basically.
So, what do you feel like you do? Like, if you can't figure out how to align it, are those moments where you need to have the real, honest, tough conversations with your spouse, but even more than that, with yourself?
I think the first thing you do is pray about it. Pray for that guidance, pray for alignment for what maybe God is trying to tell us that our life should be or needs to be, because oftentimes we have desires and dreams that God is looking at us like, girl. But I honestly feel like if we're honest with ourselves in the beginning, then we can be honest with our partner. We can be honest with our girlfriend. We can be honest with the person that we're dating before it gets to a space of marriage. But as we're ever evolving, there may always be something that may pop up in marriage. But I do think that, things like family or living situations or dreams and desires that you may have are good talking points in the beginning. And that way, if something resurfaces in marriage, then it is not as a shock. It doesn't come as a shock, or it doesn't come as oh, you've never told me that, or I didn't know that about you. Um, so yeah, I definitely think be honest with yourself first, but I definitely think bring it up to your partner.
Yeah. So you're talking about bringing things up to your partner. What are some things that you feel like you needed for us to communicate to one another in our marriage that we probably didn't? That if we would have communicated, we might have would have been able to work through some of those things to allow our individual growth the opportunity to, to shine.
I really think needs. I don't think that we communicated needs with each other very well, and whether that was out of fear or a desire not to hurt the other person. But one thing that I feel like I have learned is that we can't rob people of the opportunity to show up if they don't know that, they're needed or that there is a need. So I definitely think we could have communicated our needs better. I don't care if it was the need to have your big toe rubbed, every Sunday at 10 o'clock. I
Good
think,
idea.
nah. I think if at the bare minimum that you communicate those needs and then you allow the space for you and your partner to be able to work through those needs or say if they can fulfill that need,
Yeah.
if that's something they're willing to do. But holding it in or the silent expectation that we often have of other people, it definitely doesn't serve people. I don't think it served us. And it's definitely one thing we could have done better.
You talk about needs, and what I discovered and what we've talked about as well in our time apart is, it's one thing to communicate your needs, but before you can even communicate your needs, you have to recognize them as true needs within
Yeah.
yourself. I definitely know that there were times where I used to be like, that's not a big deal. I can do without that. It's not a priority. It's not a necessity. And then through the separation, I was able to recognize like this is something that's kind of important to me.
Right.
So before you can be real with your partner, you have to be real with yourself and say, nah, stop watering down
Yeah.
what's necessary for you, what feels important, what's a priority for you. Don't water it down for the sake of, like you said, not hurting someone's feelings, not being too demanding or being too needy. And be honest with yourself. You know what? Like I need that. Do you
Do
need
you
that?
need that?
But yeah, so I'm glad you pointed that out about communicating your needs in your marriage. But before you can communicate with your spouse, you have to be honest with yourself, self first, right?
Right.
Be honest with yourself about what you need so that you can show up authentic to your partner. And I'm sure at that point you can start to work through. You can, and you also give your partner the opportunity to say, yes, I want to work to honor that. I want to try to work on honoring that. Or you know what? That's a boundary. And I want to be honest and tell you that I can't give you that need. And that's another conversation to talk about. But when you don't be honest with yourself, you don't allow other people to accept or deny your true self.
Right. I love the way that you said that because I honestly think that that is the realization that we came to after some time.
So how are you doing? Like, how are you doing with this conversation? We're probably about, according to the recording, we're about 54 minutes in. Now I
Wow.
don't know if all that'll make the podcast, but
Yeah.
it started off kind of a little nervous. You feeling a little more comfortable now?
No, I'm
Or you
still absolutely
still
nervous.
absolutely
Absolutely
nervous?
nervous. Absolutely. I'm not a person to be in front of the camera. Well, I am a person to be in front of the camera when I take my pictures.
Mhm.
Love doing that. Not a person to be in front of the camera and definitely not a person to put a lot of my personal life into the world. I know that people feel like probably a lot of our relationship was an open book because we're sharing pictures, we're doing beautiful birthday shout outs, Valentine's Day, everything else. So I know that people likely feel like they know me through that, but this is so far left field for me. But I think it's necessary. I think it's beautiful. We've talked before that is a space that not a lot of people navigate and being ex spouses, ex partners, and being able to sit on a couch and have such a conversation with each other, just wholesome and without judgment. So through nerves, I'm gonna push through because I feel like the world needs to see that.
Yeah, because I've always wanted to show that it doesn't have to be bad. I think as much as we both don't desire to wear the label divorce, I do appreciate that we can show some form of like, this doesn't have to be we hate each other.
Mhm.
This doesn't have to be evil. It don't even have to be wrong.
Right.
Next question, just to make sure that we tie it in, because that's the purpose for us being vulnerable in this moment, is to tie it into self first. What did putting yourself first look like in this season of separation and divorce and marriage falling apart?
I think the first thing or the biggest thing in putting myself first is the decision to leave, the decision to stand firm on my boundaries, or as we just spoke about, boundaries or things that we can handle, deal with, or how we don't want to show up. So I definitely think that was the biggest thing that I did was making that very difficult decision to put Jaleesa first and remove myself from something that I love, that I've always wanted, that I had so many dreams and aspirations and future plans for, but also something that at the time was really hurting me and causing me to almost be a different person or pull out different parts of me. He used to always say, like, I am trying to battle the person that I am now, the person that is full of love and grace and empathy, and the girl I used to be that wanted to do some stuff out here. So I put myself first in that component as well, and not allowing the challenges of life to draw me back to who I used to be in ways that I used to. And then I think from there, honestly, started to probably invest in myself a little more as an adult in terms of fragrances, in terms of probably clothing, experiences. I spent a lot more time with myself. I realized that I'm always going to be a mom, no matter what. I'm not one of those that think, oh, your kids are grown, they're at the house, yada, yada. So I'm always going to be a mom. That's never going to go away. So, how can I figure out life for me and not feeling bad about choosing me in a moment or getting them kids a pizza while I go eat sushi? Like, it's okay.
They probably
You
prefer the pizza
they
anyway.
probably prefer the pizza anyway. And I also felt like it was necessary to do that for myself so that I can teach them and portray to them that it is necessary to spend time with yourself.
Yeah.
So I definitely, there was a lot of ways. Like I could keep mouthing off some ways, but I'm just gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave it at those. I will say, because I think it's important to note as well, when we find ourselves in moments of separation or divorce or just a regular relationship ending, it's so easy to kind of revert back to old habits, old ways. And I found myself laughing at the very beginning because the first moment that it was like, okay, we not doing this no more. So now I'm about to put that sexy dress on. I'm about to go to
You
the
just continue to
bar
remind us on this podcast that you was out here.
outside. I went straight outside. What I used to say, I didn't go to the streets. I was still on the sidewalk, but I didn't want to go to them streets. But I did try to go to the sidewalk. But I realized very quickly even the sidewalk is not for me. Um, I am a wife. Okay. However, I tried to revert back to old things, old ways, tried to go out and realize this is not my scene. I don't have to be the person I was before marriage just because I'm trying to find myself again. Like, I learned a lot in marriage about myself, even though I may have not always put me first. I still learned a lot, and it's okay to start from that point and move forward.
Start from that point and move forward. A lot of times we deny ourselves from the start because we think the point was supposed to be forever ago.
Right.
Let's start from there. So we talked about some of the beginning. We talked about some of the in between, and we briefly spoke about in the beginning where we are now, which is rebuilding our friendship, regaining trust in one another, and just continuing our individual journeys, and wherever togetherness falls from there, we're gonna figure it out for one. But we still do life together because we have two sons that we're raising together. We're still the biggest supporters of one another. So I think we found a way to exist in a healthy space, not because we tried to fix each other. We've been there to support each other on the journey, but we have allowed each other to fix ourselves on the journey.
For sure. It's I think we both realized, or at least I think we realized that at a point it wasn't about trying to fix the other person, that an individual journey. Like, you're going to have to navigate what you navigate. You're gonna have to figure it out. You're gonna have to feel it. Like, I used to say that often. I'm gonna have to feel this. Amber is gonna have to feel this. And I can't try to save either of us from feeling it, because unless we feel it, one, we're not going to learn from it, and two, it's not going to grow us in any type of way. So definitely just individual healing, again, moving in love and allowing that to propel the way that it does.
Sometimes when things fall apart, that's the door back to finding yourself.
Again, life is going to life, life has to life. I honestly think that sometimes when we off of get off of path, whether it's our individual path or our path within each other, there are things that will happen
Mhm.
that will cause us to have to get back to ourselves. And again, not stating that we had to go through a divorce to figure that out, but I will say that that was the way that it ended up being or had to be for us.
Yeah.
Like that is the path that we ended up ultimately taking, but I feel like individually it did what it needed to do. Yeah.
I know that I've said this to you, especially, as I saw you starting to evolve in our separation, going back to school, getting your credentials for the next level that you want to take in life, business thriving, even you out on the sidewalk, I used to tell you, I'm like, it seems like you're so much better without me. Um and I don't, I might have said that in a moment to kind of pity myself, but it was the truth of what I've seen. Almost to the point where I had moments I'm like, this is who I wanted you to be with me. I didn't want you to feel like you can only be this person without me. Like, it was kinda hard to watch sometimes, but it was also beautiful at the same time because this is the Jaleesa that I wanted to see. I see your light. I know I feel like I know your potential. I know what you have to offer the world. I know you are amazing in your career and you have a gift, and I just wanted you to reach higher and higher. And it kinda felt like it sucked that it happened when it was no longer us. So it was like, dang, I'm glad I got out the way.
Wow.
I mean, that's how it felt at times. Like, I'm glad, man. It was yeah. Life be silly sometimes.
It does, it does, and I can see how that is how that's portrayed to be that way. We see it often, you know. Again, people separate and they're like, "I'm back out here, I'm sexy again, I'm doing all of this," and I don't know if I've ever told you. I know I said it earlier that I had prayed the removal prayer, that I had planned in my mind, like, I'm going to do this, start back school, sign up for school. It was going to be my birthday present to myself that year. But I wasn't, my fear of failure wasn't allowing me to verbalize it. I didn't
Mhm.
want to say it out loud. I wanted it to be something I did. And I mean, I don't know. Eventually, I was going to tell you maybe June, July, and be like, "Hey, I'm going back to school next month." But of course, life happened before that. So it may seem like, oh, you chose to go back to school and you're doing better, but that was always going to be the plan for that year because I felt like I was getting to a point where I have to start choosing myself. So I think when we separated, it just became easier because again, I didn't have to consider a spouse. I didn't have to consider your career and how I can show up for you. I only had me and the boys to worry about.
What does this episode tell our audience about self first when it comes to marriage and losing yourself in marriage and rediscovering yourself after?
I think first to not play about yourself ever at any moment on any day. Do you play about you?
Mhm.
Um, because you are your foundation. You are your safe space at the end of it all. And you have to be comfortable, content, and with yourself before you can give yourself or be in community with anyone else. And I think that is in marriage. I think that is in friendship. I think that's in work. If you are not showing up as your true self for yourself, then you truly cannot be in spaces and being authentic in those spaces. So, first, definitely don't play about yourself. Two, I think always to move with grace, always to put love above all, and remember that one of the things that I remembered, and I think how it became so easy at a point to an extent to move with grace and with love is that it is what God shows us every single day. And for me, it became who am I to not give that grace and that love to another person when God shows it to me every single day. So don't lose sight of, I think, the blessings that you have as an individual so that in moments where hardship arises, in moments where conflict arises, that you can always remember to move with love.
Yeah, that's good. So I definitely feel like we oftentimes don't truly discover some of our authenticity until we're in things,
Yeah.
until we grow up a little bit. So the unfortunate part is that we've probably already created the relationship, the marriage. We've already chosen the career or the job. We possibly already became parents. So we are having to have those man in the mirror type of moments with ourselves in the mix of the things that we dream of, in the midst of the things that we prayed for, in the midst of things that are good in our life. And you have that mirror moment and you're like, hold on, but am I living in my full potential? Am I getting what I need? Am I saying yes to me still? And then if that's the case, then great. But if the answer is possibly no to any of those things, then you might have to shake the foundation some. And hopefully we're mature enough or capable to shake the foundation and still maintain the foundation. If not, again, our story kind of tells us that it doesn't have to end in destruction. So I think grace. You talked about love. You talked about grace too. But as you just harped on love, I think grace as well. Like give yourself grace. Give yourself grace to figure it out. Give yourself grace in your mishap, in your missteps. Give your partner grace. Give your family grace. As we're all trying to get to a place of being authentic so that we can put ourselves first, because when we put ourselves first, then we can be so much better in the spaces that we entertain, in the space of family, in the space of friendship, in the space of parenting, in the space of partnership. But self first is the key, right?
Absolutely.
Well, I thank you again for being here on the Self First podcast for the very first episode each and every week on Wednesdays. This is what we're going to do, whether it's just me, whether we have another guest. We're going to continue to talk about love. We're going to talk about healing. We're going to talk about growth. We're going to talk about faith. We're going to talk about it all because self first is the center and the root of all things. All right. Have a good day.